Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Gio, and this is chapter 11 for The Dark. North Dome, Tower 7, Rias Travieso's apartment. Rias. After Doc finished his treatments, I went back to North Dome. Doc wanted me to stay connected to the nanite cuff longer, but I resisted. I can be an invalid at my own apartment, as well as at medical. Doc authorized a grav lifter to carry me to the tram station, and one to take me home after that. The replica of the Joya de Vida needed attention. I had cut out the pieces, but never assembled them. Now I had time. My workspace needed attention, too. Somebody had dumped everything there, and as tired as I was, I spent some time putting it in order. For lunch, I went to the food court and had a very small, very mild cheese enchilada that I couldn't finish. Back at the apartment, I finished Rafaela's tattoo gun and left it at her door, cleaned up the old arm components from the kitchen counter, leaving only the charger on the counter. Ian's room was barren. He had nothing except the cat kennel, guacamole, and the cat's dishes. What had been in there left when they moved my sister out. Dad's room still remained as it had been 2 months ago. It was a bigger room than mine or Ian's, with a nice view of the Nuestran out-of-dome machinery, and then the darkness further out. I never tired of that view. Maybe it was time to clean the room up. I changed guacamole's water and food first, resting a moment on Ian's bed, then headed to Dad's old room. With my lack of stamina, I took his clothes out of the closet and set them on the couch. That exhausted me. Enough lifting for one day. Sitting next to the clothes, I pulled my data pad out to work on the Joya and fell asleep. About dinner time I woke. No Ian. With the crutch, I made my way back to the food court, ordered a really small serving of rice and beans, and took it back to my apartment. Ian was there waiting for me, grinning. I did it. He picked me up, the crutch fell, and he spun me around. I did it. He laughed, crushed me to him, and spun around again. And I can't believe how well the arm worked. You are a genius. Guacamole stared at us from her perch on the windowsill, yawned, and resumed her vigil looking outside. What did you do? I asked. They had me flying back and forth to the Adisha char so they could dump concrete on the reactor, Ian said. That seems pretty routine, I said. His excitement was contagious. His nearness was a drug. I smiled, hoping he didn't notice how tired I was. Ian set me down, but still held me, close. I guess it was routine, but stepping on that shuttle terrified me. Still does, but I did it. Maybe it was the warmth between us, or the excitement, or the dimmed lights, or bottled-up tension, or too long being alone, or surviving the crash, or living with him non-stop in medical. But something turned serious between us. Quick. Ian stroked my cheek, his eyes softening. His mouth was so close to mine. I wanted to kiss him. The loneliness inside me hurt. If I did the next step, would Ian forgive me if it didn't work? Or worse, if it did? Let me show you why Doc wanted me to turn the sensitivity down, I said, and swallowed. Ian might not be ready for this. I might not be ready for this. Tell me if this is too much. Datapad. Boost Ian's arm sensitivity to max. A slight flicker shimmered through the arm. The look in Ian's eyes deepened. His eyes opened wide, and he sucked in a breath. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I can feel, but it's more than before. I ran a finger along his arm, lightly touching the clear skin. Doc keeps the settings low, maybe 20%. I don't. Ian inhaled. Oh my God, I feel that. I didn't know cybernetics let you feel. Normal ones don't, I whispered, because I wanted him so much. I ran the finger down to his hand, picked his hand up, and paused. I wanted to feel alive, even for a few hours, because I hadn't for a long time. Was I taking it too far? Too fast? "Tell me to stop if this is too much," I whispered. Gently, I kissed the palm of his metal hand. "Oh my God, how did you do this?" Ian whispered, his face wet. "Don't tell Doc, but I put a salvaged AI in your arm to convert electrical impulses into nerve impulses," I confessed. I searched Ian's face for any sign of approval or disapproval. "It controls every sensation that hits the clear skin and feeds it to you. It feels like you're feeling, because you are feeling." I kissed his palm again, then his wrist, then his forearm. I needed him more than words could say. I kissed my way to his shoulder collar. "I felt everything," he whispered. I thought it was only me that felt the attraction between us, but his smile faded as we faced each other. His scent, his warmth, the way he held me. The fear vanished inside me. Ian leaned in and kissed me again. His arms circled me. It felt right, being in his arms, the warmth of his lips, the feel of his hands on my back. As I placed my hands on his shoulders to steady myself, I let his hands draw me in closer, tighten about me, and my heart rate doubled. Ian's breath quickened. Ian stepped back, breathing in deep and slowly exhaling. "We need to stop. You're too weak." My brain said he was right. My heart said he was wrong. "Maybe you're right, but I need you." Our lips connected. His right arm caressed my cheek. Part of my mind did one last analysis. The arm was body temperature warm, which meant the internal heating units were working. "Are you sure about this?" Ian said, picking me up. "We don't know each other." I read my file. I died twice. I'm only days away from dying. And for a little while, I don't want to think. I want to feel. I want to live. Even if it is only for tonight. Even if what we have only lasts until your captain comes back. I need to feel alive. I want to feel alive. Ian held me, and we kissed again. I wrapped my arms around Ian's neck as he lifted me in his arms and took me back to the bedroom. Ian. Midnight. In Rias's apartment. We lay in bed, holding each other. Datapad. Ian's sensitivity. Normal, Rias said. The sensations in my arm faded. "No, don't do this." "Why? I want to feel all the time," I said. "Even with all I've done, that high of an intensity for more than a few hours would burn out your arm and possibly cause nerve damage. I'm sorry. We have to save it for special occasions." He placed a hand on my chest, then lay his head on my heart. "I like the sound of your heart. So strong, so healthy, so alive." I pulled him up so we could look at each other. The loneliness in his eyes was gone. His eyes moistened. Something trickled from his cheek and onto my shoulder. His whisper was so soft I could barely even hear it. "Would you mind if I loved you?" While I held him, Rias dozed, his face relaxing, and for once, I hoped he knew a little peace. I did. For a little while, I didn't feel friendless on a strange asteroid, or afraid of flying. The images of crashing, of losing my arm, of seeing my rescuer as little more than a corpse, faded. Guacamole jumped on the bed, curling up by our feet. I was falling in love with the man that rescued me. It had been almost a month since the accident, and every hour I cared for him more. Rias was an amazing man. He made me an arm while he was in a hospital bed. Not just any arm, but a beautiful one that mimicked what I had lost. He had become an incredibly vibrant man lying in my arms. If I could, I would protect him from his illness and show him the stars. The ache in my chest threatened to bring tears. Rias could never go to the stars. He would be trapped on Nuestra for years, if not the rest of his life. This incredible man sacrificed his dreams to save me. Rias and I had weeks together until the captain came back. Weeks to decide if this relationship would last, or if it would fade. I wasn't like Gallagher. Every time we landed, he found a bar, a girl, and bragged about the night they spent together. Captain and Carruthers were always together. Me? I committed as best a spacer could. One man, one relationship, no one-nighters. It had been a long time since I had been in a relationship. My ex had difficulty with me being gone so much. Could Rias handle me being gone so long? Could I handle being away from him? I stared at the steady rise and fall of his chest, at the calm face, and I remembered his calm concentration as he sealed in the oxygen back on the audiobook. With as gentle a touch as I could, I caressed his cheek with the prosthetic arm. I felt the warmth of his cheek, the gentleness of the skin. It wasn't as strong a sensation as before, but it was still there. There was no disconnect. There was no lag. The arm, hand, and fingers moved as my own once did. While I let him sleep, I looked at the scars on his body. Not regular scars, but scars that all the tubes and needles and cuffs had left. The most obvious were the nanite cuff scars on his right arm, 3 odd circles that were never allowed to heal because he needed the cuff daily. The blood cuff on his right leg had left 2 circles, but those would heal over. The IV marks on his right arm and the permanent IV needle stuck into his right arm left bruises and needle marks. There were little circles and bruises over the larger bones, where Doc tried to rebuild the marrow and failed. If you could have chosen to stay safe and healthy, or come out and rescue me, would you choose differently? I whispered. But Rias was asleep. I think I knew what his answer would be. Just like his dad saved him, Rias would still charge out to the ship to help. Would you still choose to love me? I whispered. My emotions had finally emerged. I was in love with the man who had saved me, the man who could build anything, even an arm. My arm. We only had a few weeks together, but I would make them the best of Rias's life. I snuggled him close and let his soft breathing lull me to sleep. Rias. North Tower. His apartment. 3 a.m. The nightmare started. Not mine, but Ian's. No, too close. Ian hit the bed with his prosthetic. Guacamole jumped off and disappeared into the other room. It's just a dream, I said. Ian twisted and turned, his face sweaty and pale. He whipped his head from side to side. The blanket fell to the floor. Robinson, get out of there. It's okay, I whispered, and a gentle shake of his shoulder woke him. A light flashed outside, illuminating the window for a second, before going back to the dimness of night mode. I whispered, I'm here. Go to sleep. I'll keep you safe. Sorry. Didn't mean to wake you, Ian whispered. Don't worry about it. I gestured to the arm. Let me have it and I'll put it on the charger. Though Ian tried to release the arm from the collar, it wouldn't fall free. I reached over and guided his fingers. Once the arm was loose, I took it to the charging station in the living room, using the wall as leverage in place of the crutch, then returned to lay by Ian. As I lay down, Ian threw the blanket over us both, then placed his left hand behind his head. It's the same dream, or mostly the same dream, every night. The crash of the audiobook, I said. Ian nodded. The dream was more intense this time, probably because I piloted the shuttle and went back to the old girl. Unable to sleep, I adjusted the blanket over me and propped my head on my hand. Go on. I'm back on the old bridge, watching the missile strike, and no matter what I do, Robinson dies, Ian said. It wasn't your fault, I said. I know that, but I feel responsible. There had to be a way to escape, Ian said. Not that time. You were outnumbered and outgunned. Daggers are fast attack craft. You couldn't have escaped them. I know it, Ian said, when I'm awake, but not when I'm asleep. Good thing I'm here. I'll just wake you up. I inched over and lay next to him. Why don't you tell me about your crew? Let's see how far you get before you fall asleep. Thank you, everybody, for joining me for this chapter. We'll see you next time. Peace.